그때 당시의 목표는 플레이오프만 가자였는데 이게 어떻게 여기까지 오게 된 것 같아요.
If someone said to someone, H2K are gonna be playing for a spot at the finals, I think you would be lunatic, maybe.
H2K도 저희 팀이랑 비슷하게 4강에 올라오기 힘들었을 팀이라고 생각 들었을 것 같아요. 근데 방심할 수 없는 팀인 것 같고 그래서 준비를 많이 해야 될 것 같아요.
There is a reason that they are here instead of TSM or G2 or Flash Wolves. I think they're a really good team. And I think if we play our hearts out, we can possibly make history.
눈앞에 결승이 있다 보니까 결승까지 가고 싶어요.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2016 League of Legends World Championship. We're coming to you live from New York's Madison Square Garden, where fans from around the world have gathered for our final day of semifinal competition. By the night's end, only 2 teams will remain in pursuit of the Summoners Cup to face off in next week's finals. Now, last night we had one of the most epic 5-game series in the history of Worlds, and I know that fans, casters, analysts alike are hoping for the exact same tonight. Of course, we have packed this entire place to the brim, as you can see here, and people are more than ready to see some sweet Worlds semifinal action. Semifinalist Samsung Galaxy here representing the LCK, getting ready backstage for this semifinal showdown. Of course, they'll face a hungry H2K lineup. Both of these teams have not dropped a single game over the last 2 weeks. Well, that's about to change. Thank you for joining us. I'm James Patterson, and with me on the analyst desk tonight is Mitch Kruppo Vorspals, Jake Spawn Tiberi, and Joshua Jat Leesman.
Oh, man.
Following that epic series yesterday, Jad, how are we feeling coming into tonight?
I think it's almost impossible to top yesterday. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of casting way up there. It's super exciting to be down on the analyst desk on the floor at Madison Square Garden. Would be even cooler to be one of those players up there. Those guys, I can't wait for them to put on a show.
Yeah, and you can understand why teams coming here miss free throws, even though it's a gimme, because, wow, this place is huge and the fans are loud.
That's true. Being down here, it's like bathing. We're bathing in sound right now. It's absolute insanity. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to join Riv on stage to meet the 2 teams vying for the last spot in next week's World Championship Finals.
Madison Square Garden! Are you ready for more semifinals action? Tonight, we find out who will be the final team to face SKT, to find out who will challenge them for the Summoners Cup. Now please join me in welcoming tonight's semi-finalists in our competition. Starting on the blue side, the surprise from the Korean LCK, Samsung Galaxy.
Slicing Maelstrom on 3 members, the shockwave from Crown, and Cloud9 is melting.
Samsung looks so impressive. They want to go all the way to the end.
They came in hungry to book their ticket over to the Big Apple, and it looks like Samsung Galaxy will be moving on to the semifinals at Madison Square Garden.
In the top lane, Juve. At jungle, Ambition. In mid lane, Crown. At AD carry, Ruler. At support, Core JJ. Their sub at the support position, Wraith. And their coach, Edgar. Once again, Samsung Galaxy. Their opponents in tonight's matchup, from the European LCS, H2K.
He's done it for one. The steal away. Yanko secures an absolutely massive Elder Drake, and EDG are evaporating on the spot.
H2K have just been dominating all their lanes.
H2K demolish ANX.
In the top lane, Odoamne. At jungle, Yankos. In mid lane, Ryu. At AD carry, Forgiven. At support, Vander. Their sub at the AD carry position, Freeze. And their coach, Brawly. Once again, H2K. And put your hands together one more time for both tonight's semi-finalists. Players, please take your seats.
Samsung Galaxy and H2K doing battle on stage tonight to move on and challenge our reigning champions, SK Telecom, at Staples Center. This is going to be a big battle.
Yeah, and just the energy in this place. I felt it yesterday casting upstairs together with Jazz, as he was saying, but now that you're down here, these players, they're about to go in a best of 5 where they continuously have to keep making moves. They will make failures under the pressure of such a crowd. It is honestly just amazing. These are lifetime memories for these guys that they bring home. The cheers that Forgiven got, for example, that is something you will never, ever forget in your life.
And as we saw yesterday, right, it came down to the wire. The games could have been decided by a couple decisions here or there. The very same thing could happen tonight.
And that becomes all the harder with some of the inexperience in these lineups, because you could see the fishbowl effect already when Ruler was looking out into the crowd. This is bigger than he has ever played in his life. And, you know, you say that they're career-defining moments, and they have to be able to execute the way that Rox and SKT were able to yesterday.
Very much so. Well, joining us in Madison Square Garden for today's semifinal are our partners from all over the world, helping to bring the tournament to fans around the globe in 18 languages. Seen here are our counterparts from Brazil's CB LoL. The team from the LPL are bringing the action to the audience in China, and the Korean team here from OGN live at MSG as well. And then lastly, we have the LPL's Ren Dong, along with the Spiralcrats, making an appearance here at MSG. Now, we've come a long way since the group stages in San Francisco, and now only 3 teams remain. SK Telecom T1 defeated ROX Tigers in yesterday's 5-game match. They will play tonight's winner in the finals next week. Both of tonight's teams made quick work of their quarterfinal matchup, so tonight should be a different challenge entirely. And of course, you can still help raise the stakes in next week's clash for the cup. 25% of all Championship Z and Championship Ward Skin proceeds will go directly to the world's prize pool. By the end of the group stage, the prize pool was more than doubled. We'll bring you another update on the numbers next week. Now, before we dig into that matchup, let's talk a bit about what we saw last night between SKT and the ROX Tigers.
Yeah, and you know, Jat and I went to dinner last night, and we're sitting there naming all the great matchups at Worlds that have happened, and this might be the best. In fact, I think it was, because these two teams came in and executed at such a high level for 5 hours, and to watch them just go head-to-head, the two best teams in the world at that time, was honestly awe-inspiring to watch.
And to add to that, that series just delivered on so many different levels. You had a pocket pick that no one had scouted from the entire world, support Misfortune, win 2 games, and then be banned for the next 2. You had Bengi coming in off the bench as a 2-time world champion to be 3-0 in the series. And you also had the #1 and the #2 player in the world battling for that crown. It had everything, and it was just a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, you had veterans already in Smeb and Faker, but then you also had like kind of newer players like a Peanut who completely he thrived under this environment, you know, with the crowd just rallying behind him. Just standing here right now and feeling the atmosphere in this stage just makes me appreciate that match even more, because Rox Tigers kept playing on the aggressive even after failing a couple of times under such many eyes here in such a round theater. I'm used to playing from the stage and then looking backwards, but everywhere you're looking, surrounded by people watching you play, it's honestly so impressive that they kept going and kept smiling.
Yeah, you can't escape them. But dare I say that Peanut snatched the heart of the world throughout this tournament with his devilishly cute looks, as you can hear here. Anyway, time to move on to the match at hand. The LCK Samsung Galaxy versus Europe's H2K. Both of these teams exceeded expectations, finishing first in their groups, went undefeated through the quarterfinals, and are now making a run at the finals. What has gotten these teams this far?
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at this Samsung Galaxy roster, you have to have so much respect, because in 2014, Blue and White lost all of their starting members, and it was only Kuve off the bench that stuck around. They've rebuilt, failed in 2015. 2016, only Kuve remains from that lineup. They bring in ambition, the older figure in the team, the shot caller, and they've been able to bring it all the way to semifinals. Rule has only been playing AD carry professionally for a year, Core JJ support for 3 months, and you know, you have people like Crown that have come across from the CB LoL. This team was kind of mismatched together, but boy, has it worked out in their favor.
Yeah, and then you take that story and juxtapose it with how dominant they've been at Worlds. They have the fewest losses of any team here. They have the fastest average win time, and they have decent early game advantages, but this team really takes off after 15 minutes and closes the game out quickly.
Yeah, they go off in the 15 to 20 minute mark. Every single game, they either find an opportunity themselves or they just force their opponents to make a mistake seemingly randomly, but because it happens so consistently, we have to credit Samsung for that fact. And honestly, they're 6-0 right now with Core JJ. They have been swapping him in and out with Rafe on the support position, but it seems every time they swap him in, they just play that little bit more aggressive. He doesn't really do that much more in lane, but it seems that every player plays much better when Core JJ is in a team.
It's some type of environment thing with this, guys, and you can speak as a player. Sometimes when you have that guy that comes in, people just gel and play better around him, and that seems to be what's happening with Core JJ.
Could even be a communication thing. When somebody just says a little thing, it nudges the communication forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, of course, he's only been playing support for 3 months, professionally for longer than that. But to make that kind of transition with a team and to have this kind of team-wide effect is pretty stellar.
And that's what it is, right? It's a team-wide effect because they play more aggressive, they draft around it, their laning phase is great. And when you have a look at this lineup and just how they click and gel, it has become such a no-brainer to start who was a sub at the start of Worlds in the semi-final now, and you've got to really give the player credit for that.
On the other side of this matchup, we do have H2K, who have had a similar run through the tournament.
Yeah, and you look at this team, and it seems like they're gelling at exactly the right time because they never really put it all together during the European splits where they were never even able to make it to a finals. You look at this team on paper, they have tremendous individual players, but either someone has been underperforming or the team has completely lacked cohesion. Yet here at Worlds, they're winning their lanes consistently, and they're actually able to close the game. So finally, it's like the dream team that H2K has always wanted to be together.
Yeah, with Forgiven return, their early game is so impressive. They have statistically the best early game of the entire tournament, and it's honestly very reminiscent of a style SK Gaming used to play with that same Forgiven. It's aggressive lanes, mid, bot, and top CS differences galore, always winning in the early game. And that's also what H2K will need to do in this particular matchup today. It is win lane, win game, because Samsung is a mid to late game powerhouse, but H2K have the tools, and especially the cohesion and synergy, it seems, in this tournament to actually create potential upset.
And Spawn, looking at the graph, I think a lot of people, the criticism they'll throw is, hey, what about the strength of schedule and the level of competition that H2K has been up against?
And I guess that's the last remaining question, right? They're able to take it to the wildcard teams, both of them. They're able to beat out EDG, who played Worlds horribly, honestly. considering expectations, and AHQ, who we knew was not going to be able to step up this year just because of their relative strength. However, when you have a look at how they're winning against these teams, that's where it becomes impressive, because it's not like the games are being drawn out. They play so quickly. They build these leads through the laning phase and then rotate it around the map much more cleanly in the last couple of weeks. I really do think there is something to this team.
Yeah, that's the thing. If they had just been averagely beating weaker competition, you could actually fault them for having a weaker strength of schedule. But when they're beating these guys better than anyone else is beating other teams in the tournament, you can't fault them for that because they're doing all they can.
All right, well, now that we have the big picture in mind, let's go ahead and zero in on some of the individual matchups and where these teams are going to be clashing. Let's start in the top lane, Odoamne versus Kuve.
Yeah, and this is incredibly exciting because Kuve was one of those players that came in through the gauntlet run in the LCK, solo killing some days, most solo kills at Worlds with 11, and he's going up against Odoamne, someone who I've always rated incredibly high. This is a guy that partners up with the jungler so well on the top side of the map, and they're able to take over games.
Exactly, just like you say, you got to expand that pairing. We need to look at Odoamne with Jankos and Kuve with Ambition, and that's then potentially where H2K have their kind of trap card enabled, because the pairing between Odoamne and Jankos is seemingly much better, and that could be a way to beat Kuve. He himself is a monster, but even the best players die 2v1.
Yeah, both of these players have actually really stepped up in the top lane, but I'm even looking at the mid lane where you had Crown, who is expected to be an incredibly good mid laner here, and Ryu, who after a lot of mediocrity in Europe, people weren't expecting to shine. But I feel like Ryu carried a number of games for H2K, specifically when they went 4-0 in that group stage, the first player to excel on Rise, and I think he's playing some of the best League of Legends he has ever played. Can't wait for this mid lane match.
Yeah, he definitely hit the slump when he had to go for his visa in spring, came back from Korea after Selfie subbed in for just a few weeks there, and it seemed H2K ever since was in shambles. But with Ryu stepping up, with Odoamne stepping up, it actually enables the man in the bot lane. Forgiven can now play his favorite styles, and many critics, including myself, have said very often, you know what, Forgiven always just pushes on the tower and then can get ganked. But in the quarterfinal versus Albus Luna, he actually showed versatility. They backed off when they could read a gank on the map, allowing Odoamne and Ryu to play farther forward. They backed off, then they pushed again, essentially playing 2v3 and being a service to their team. And with that flexibility in mind, I'm excited to see if H2K can continue this against a better team.
Yeah, I completely agree, because, you know, we've still got the 5 Caitlyn games there for Forgiven, but we've also got 2 Sivir, 2 Lucian. So this guy is expanding the champion pool. He's looking to play utility when he has to, and teaming up with Vanda, a lane that I thought maybe had one great player and one player that would struggle on the world stage, has seemed to come together at the right time again.
And when we talk about incredible laning statistics, I mean, you saw there on your screen, CS differential for Forgiven, absolutely nuts, along with the KDA. And Jat, jokingly yesterday, Deficio said that he, you know, God-given, would put his hat in the ring for best player in the world. But this really is about building a legacy for him, and here he is on the semifinal stage.
This is the chance where he can build a legacy. If he can beat a Korean team in a best-of-5 at Worlds, that would be a first for the European region, and he has been the one that kind of came in and, in a sense, saved this team. Freeze was out with injury, H2K was struggling, and Forgiven came in. So if he's able to play with the team and still have that individual performance, that's where he can really define himself.
But this is where the matchup gets incredibly exciting for me, because we're talking about one team that plays through laners. It's going to take over sub 15 minutes. Then we're talking about Samsung, the team that sets up so many traps through good vision, 15 to 22 minutes, and then crushes teams. It's so hard to tell exactly how they do it, because they're doing it in different parts of the map, but their warding, their vision control, and their ability to execute is second to none at the moment.
But we also have to count in pressure, and H2K historically have cracked under pressure in best-of-5s. They also parted ways with Forgiven in the past. They look to have mended most of those issues already, and they're playing, honestly, much better than anybody really expected. But we need to see if they can keep going, use that momentum forward, and play their signature style of all those strong lanes, getting in a gold lead, getting into the mid-game with that lead.
All right, time now to distill all this information into your predictions for tonight. So which is going to be the team to move on and challenge SKT for the Summoners Cup? Crepo,
if we're looking at all these things we just mentioned, it looks really good on paper for H2K. Strong lanes, everybody showing up, jungle and top synergy, but we haven't talked too much about how good Samsung White is, how little vision they need to really read the map, and it's for that reason, from the 20 to 40 minutes, I think the late game shot calling for Samsung is so much better. If it ever comes to a Baron contest, I think they will just take it. And H2K is simply a little bit too weak in the late game. So I'm going with Samsung Galaxy 3-1.
All right, that's our first vote. Spawn, what you got for me?
Yeah, when I have a look at this on paper, I do the exact same thing. I look at Jankos and Odoamne, one of my favorite duos, and I think these guys could do it, but I think they can only do it for a game. Then you have a look at Samsung, and they just have such strength, and I think they are a disciplined lineup, even though they are so young. I think that they will win this one. I think it's going to be 3-1, and I think that they even have what it takes to step up against SKT as well. So I'm a big fan of this team.
Another vote for the Korean team. Jat?
H2 what? H2 Korean teams in finals.
I
definitely feel
baited.
like all the things these guys have said was generally correct because I thought it was a good joke.
It
I
was,
think it's
to
good.
be honest.
It segues into the prediction quite well. H2K have dominated teams in the laning phase. That's how they've won. And even though Samsung hasn't done it to the same level, Samsung is still the best laning team H2K has played against. I've thrown the crowd off. Now they're just defaulting to TSM.
I hate to inform everybody in this arena, but TSM is not playing.
Specifically, though, Samsung is the best laning phase team that H2K has played against at Worlds, and they also have the best map rotations, which is why I think they can take it. But even if it's generic, I think 3-1.
If H2K take it, however, it is not an upset. They definitely deserve to be here in the semifinals already. They distinctively beat EDG.
Yep.
If you look at their draws, they had a 2 out of 3 chance to either draw C9 and ANX, and they would have smashed both those series. So they definitely deserve to be here.
Totally.
They are not complete underdogs, but if we just look at all the information given, Samsung just leans forward.
It's the matchup. It's how the teams match up. All right, now for an alternate look at the action, hit up the player experience stream where Pastry Time, Azael, and Zyrene, along with our special guests Froggen and Anori, focus in on specific matchups across the map. Now, as we head to the Casters 4 Game 1, Ambition says his team's journey to Worlds was anything but expected.
월드 챔피언십에 간다고 얘기를 들었었다면 솔직히 저희는 믿지 않았을 것 같아요. 왜냐면 저희는 완전 신생팀이랑 다름이 없었고 그리고 워낙에 한국이란 곳이 좀 월드 챔피언십에 올라가기 되게 힘든 곳이라고 생각하고 저희가 실제로 저희는 스프링 시즌에는 플레이오프도 못 갔었어요. 그래서 뭐 그때 당시의 목표는 플레이오프만 가자였는데 이게 어떻게 여기까지 오게 된 것 같아요.
We'll have to find out how far they can make it. Hello, Madison Square Garden.